Hey guys, how you doing? I just got back into my office. This is Mike McCormick with Advanced Criminology here in Owens Mills, Maryland. And I was doing some database work for the past 2 weeks, in reference to a statement that was made from one of the gun trace officers who was on trial a couple of weeks ago. And it would be this gentleman here. And as you can see, his name is M. Gondo. That's Mamadou Gondo. He's one of the gun trace task force officers who pled guilty about 3 or 4 months ago to corruption, along with this next gentleman behind him. Next to him is Marcus Ward, and to the right would be Sergeant Wayne Jenkins. All three of these guys had pled guilty already to corruption charges in Baltimore. But one of the things that I think the federal prosecutors wanted in terms of reduction of sentence for these guys was whether or not that they could implicate other police officers who might have been involved with them in corruption on the streets of Baltimore City. Well, this gentleman here, as I'm moving close again, he named this gentleman here. We don't have a picture for him. His name is Tariq Edwards. And he also named the now deceased detective, Sean Souter. As you guys know, if you follow the Baltimore cases involving Detective Souter, he was gunned down in West Baltimore back on November 15, 2017. And the speculation has been that someone related to him in terms of the gun trace task force probably was behind his killing, or the speculation has been that he probably committed suicide. And the third speculation has been that an unknown suspect who he approached in that area that we've shown several times here on YouTube, between two vacant row homes, he met up with someone, and that person overpowered him, took his weapon, and shot him in the head. Well, what we did was we decided to go ahead and test our theory related to Detective Gondo's statement that he, back in 2000, from 2007, maybe 2010, had worked with Detective Sean Souter, along with this gentleman here, T. Edwards, who we don't have his face. And these guys were involved in corruption way back then, about 10 years ago. The other testimony came from this gentleman here, Detective Ward. Now, Detective Ward never implicated Detective Souter, even though they worked together for a while, in at least 170 cases together. He never admitted on the stand in this trial that Detective Souter was involved in any type of police misconduct. Again, this gentleman did. So what we did was we went back to the court records and we decided to find out when Detective Souter first made contact with these gentlemen in the police department. And it starts back on this date here, 12/10/207, where Souter and Ward had started making cases together. And I'll scroll down to show you pretty much how many cases that they made together. So Ward is in the purple, Souter's in the gold. And you can see for yourself approximately 175 cases, okay? Ward had 151 cases with Souter. Gondo had 22 cases with Souter. And this gentleman here, Tariq Edwards, had 15 cases with Souter. And if we go even further over, Sergeant Jenkins had 8 cases with Souter. Another gentleman who was put off the police force 10 years ago, he had 4 cases with Souter. And then this detective again, who was working in the academy, he had 3 cases with Souter. Okay? But our concern here is what's in the purple and gold, the orange, and the blue. And as you can see, that there was a lot of working together in these cases, which means that these were arrests that were made on the streets of Baltimore amongst 1, 2, 3, or 4 of these officers the whole time from 2007 to 2010, which now starts to lend a little bit more credibility to this officer here, even though he's incarcerated, and even though he's been a person that's always been suspicious in terms of his culpability in this case, as someone who knew a lot about street crime and how to get away with certain things on the police department. And so when he made that statement, I felt a need to go back and check it, because the question came up for us is that if in fact Souter had worked with Detective Ward and had worked with Detective Gondo and Edwards, that he would have known that these guys were doing and acting in a capacity that wasn't acceptable in policing. And so as much as has been touted about the detective, we certainly want to investigate more. But I wanted to bring that up to you today, and I'll go in detail a little bit more about it when we meet again. Again, this is early in our investigation, so as we develop more leads and things like that in terms of the working environment together with those guys, we'll get back to you. This has been Mike McCormick here at Advanced Criminology here in Baltimore, Maryland, and leave your comments.